This is David Tulis. We're glad you're giving us just a couple minutes of your time here at AM 1240 and FM 92.7. Also 95.3 HD4, the high definition channel. We're here covering local economy and the free market. And one thing I think that's really in your favor, if you can tune into our program every day for just a few minutes, is that we have a very positive argument, a very can-do argument, even though my report is bleak. Okay, we have a very bleak analysis from the pen of David Tulis, writing at Nooganomics.com, and also among the writers he recommends a dark analysis, and yet we have individual people such as Hanson Melvin who make it easy for us to think very much in favor of the future, very much in favor of personal initiative and acts of grace where the other side doesn't seem to deserve the slightest act of grace, the slightest forgiveness for a wrong or an injury. Now we are here with Hanson. Hanson is the man you may have I'm certain you've heard of him by now. He's been big time in the press on TV stations. He had an interview not long ago in the newsroom of the Times Free Press with Ellis Smith, who's one of the fine writers at the newspaper, and another staffer, explaining what happened to him. A police officer was fired. David Campbell was fired for abusing Hanson Melvin, for arresting him without cause, for harassing him, and also for acts not done in connection with Hanson. That would be his use of his cruiser at about 100 miles an hour down Hickson Pike at night, that kind of thing. So David Campbell is suing to clear his name and retain his job with the Chattanooga City Police. But Hanson stands apart. There is litigation afoot about his abuse, and I'm having him here because I want him to tell you about what's happened to him since that time. And I think Hanson, one of the points that you want to make to the listener is that you, in many ways, are a kind of representative. You represent the idea of standing your ground, right? Can you tell a little bit about what happened? And I really want you just to talk more than recount the story, which the listener can have at Nooganomics.com. But what that means for him? Why is what you did something that he can learn from, my listener?
Because I'm very common. I'm a common man, just like any other man, and basically I'm just like anybody else. I'm just a random guy off the street. We all faced with the same law enforcement agencies. We all got to go through the same thing. Basically, the system grinds us down, and I'm just one of the common people that had to go through the system and go through the process to get my name free. But it was a long, grueling process, and it's good to know the process before you get started into something like that. Before you have a case, when a case happens to you, when you are accused by the state, and when you're going through something from the law enforcement, it's good to know the proper steps to getting yourself free, to emancipating yourself, to know your rights. We all don't know our rights. This situation has taught me that I didn't know my rights. That's what it's taught me.
Well, you did, though, in a way, know your rights. I mean, when you had that encounter outside your apartment block here in Hickson, you said that the officer demanded to have your social security number, which you did not give him, and he also demanded to know whether you had your driver's license, which you said effectively, well, what relevance is that? I'm walking.
Yeah, probable cause.
Probable cause. So tell my listener what probable cause is. What does that, did the officer have probable cause to talk with you as he did?
Basically, probable cause is a reason to search you, a reason to pull you over. It's the reason for them to do their job. They have to have a reason to bother you, or I don't want to use the word to bother, to see what's going on. They didn't have any reason. Anytime you pulled over, for any reason, you should ask the officer, what was his probable cause? You want to make sure he's doing his job. You're the taxpayer. That's why he has his job. We give him too much power.
And because you want him to do his job correctly,
yeah,
you the listener, have a duty to say, could you state your probable cause or can you articulate the reason for stopping me? That's maybe in less legal language, but he has to have an articulable suspicion.
Right. And at that point, if they do not state their probable cause and they're still forcing themselves about, just I think your best decision for your safety is to go along with it. Do not resist arrest, because that can cause injury for you or the officer. After that, after you being locked up or going through whatever you go through that night, or what daytime, or whatever time of day you're being arrested or harassed or wrongfully accused, after being incarcerated and being set free, go down or go home or wherever your safe haven is, and write down the facts. Write down everything that happened, everything you can remember, all the facts. And those are the important parts of your case, the details of everything that happened.
Now that's what you did, Hanson Melvin, when you realized that you knew you were wronged as you were in the back of the cruiser, but you had taken the step of making an affidavit. What's an affidavit about? Why is that important for the listener to do immediately after an illicit confrontation?
The affidavit is basically you telling the story and stating the facts, all the facts, and it will be held. The affidavit will be held if your case goes to court. It will be held against you in court. So you need to make sure you state the facts, no lies, just everything.
No exaggerations.
No exaggeration. I know you can, and the important thing, the reason why you need to go and write down the facts immediately after the situation, because there's a lot of emotion involved. When you get angry and after arrest or after accused or any situation like that, you need to have the facts. You need to go down and write those facts down, because they're important in your case, and that's what they're going to use. They're going to use those facts.
Well, Hanson Melvin, in reporting on your case, I failed to do a couple things. One is to get the dash cam and the audio, which was available through Open Records. And I kicked myself for not having done that. I'm not sure why I didn't. But the other thing that emphasizing the point of that you're making about the need for an affidavit is you forgot an important fact in your affidavit, which I read. And the fact was that Officer Campbell said, "This is government property. Show me your license."
Right.
And you didn't that was not in your affidavit.
About that, yeah.
And but that was that detail was published in the Chattanooga Time-Free Press on its website. And it's on YouTube that has the Hanson Melvin arrest. It's a kind of edited version of that encounter. And that quote, that's a shocking quote, because Rochelle Gelpin, a neighbor of yours, faced the exact same dilemma. She was arrested also. The grand jury gave her a no true bill. You were indicted for the false charges. But the officer in her case said the same thing. You're on government property. And so effectively, I own you. I own you. Right. The white officer owning this woman happens to be black.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Holocaust. It was just like the Gestapo. That's what it felt like. Late night, you're an adult, and they tell you to go in the house now.
Yeah, go in the house because this is government property. So that's the Hanson Melvin story. Yeah. Okay, so you wrote an affidavit, and I think you're right, and I think the listener needs to hear Hanson on this point. It's easy to start forgetting things, and notice he forgot an important quote, even though it was some days after when he wrote that affidavit, and that would have made the story better in a way. But you see, he forgot even an important detail like that statement, which is a completely illicit, racist statement. And so you have this, and you're emphasizing that it has to be true because it will be used against you in court as if you go to court, they'll look at that affidavit and try to find disagreements between what you say on the stand and what you wrote initially. So that's why it has to be purely factual, nothing made up, because you'll forget even what you wrote in the affidavit later.
Right.
Well, what happened then? What's the next lesson that the listener can make? What about plea bargaining in Hamilton County Sessions Court? That was your next. You were arrested. You were then indicted. And what happens in these lower courts? What's the function of the prosecutor there?
It's a system, and man, it's like cooking food. You come in, they hand you the paper, and they're saying, "Hey, you should do this. You should take the plea that we have here for you, and your case can be over. You don't have to come keep coming back to court and fighting us. We don't want you to fight us no more. Just sign this paper right here. Basically what they're telling you, but you don't know. If you're new going to court for the first time, you are going to take that plea bargain. If you're
because
not,
it seems like an easy out.
it seems like an easy out, especially if you don't feel like you don't have the time. You got to go to work. Oh my God, I got to go to work the next couple of months. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to do. It's not worth it. Do not take the plea bargain. Fight it, because it's going to go on your record. I mean, and yes, a grueling process, but it's worth it. You don't want the man to keep getting over on you. You want to fight him. You want to make him work. You want to make him work. Make him work hard. Make him work hard.
Well, in a way, it's unusual for you to say that, Hanson Melvin. You're 29 years
28.
old. You're 28 years old. You're a young man. You're married, and when you had your initial hearing, that was the day your wife Tara gave birth to your third child.
Yes.
Talk about what was going through your mind on that day.
I don't know, a lot. I was just I don't know where I was at, man. It was I can't even tell you where I was at in my head. I was just hoping I can get out of this mess. I just didn't want to be involved in getting in this court and staying in the system, keep coming back. You know, I felt like what I just told you. I just wanted to give up.
Well, you did something really extraordinary. You asked for an interview with the district attorney, Neil Pinkston.
Yes.
And you found out from him that he sees very few cases. He'll see maybe 2 out of 100 cases and have any direct knowledge. And the rest is just sort of a machine. It just
he doesn't see 98% of his cases. He does not see. He does not look at it.
But he has a staff of a dozen staffers, and maybe one of them did.
Oh man!
But probably they looked at it just perfunctorily, just sort of, well, you know, this is just another
case.
public disorder case.
Just another case. Just another face. Just another case.
But you went alleging abusive conduct by the officer, right?
Yes.
And what was your argument in that meeting?
He falsely accused me.
The officer.
David Campbell falsely accused me. He falsely arrested me. He was harassing me. He had no probable cause to stop me, especially when I wasn't even close to the situation that they were dealing with. They was already dealing with an altercation before me coming out. I was away from the situation. I just told him he was harassing me. He's harassed me before. And he said he would take a look at the case. He would take a look at it. He'd get back to me.
And what happened the next day?
The next day,
when you went to court,
they dropped the case when I went to court.
So you were called up by Judge Poole.
Yep.
In criminal court.
Yep.
That was criminal court?
Yeah,
right?
It was criminal court. And they basically, you can see that DA talking to somebody. They stopped. They called my name, Hanson Melvin. It's time for you to come up. Then it's kind of like a little pause. Everybody paused. Wait a minute. One guy went and talked to another. Hey, you know, you could see something was going on, and basically they said, hey, his case is being dropped due to prejudice. I'm sure that was the word that he used.
I think it was being dropped without prejudice. I think what that means is that it can't be raised again. It's not a question of racial prejudice.
Right.
They're denying themselves the occasion to raise charges against you later.
Right.
So it was being dropped. And what did the judge's order include in that dismissal?
An expungement on my background. They don't want that. They didn't want that on my record. So
what happened there?
Basically, all I had to do was they wrote me up a little paper, and all I had to do was take it down to the little office, and it would start the expungement process. And basically, I signed the papers. They give me a copy of the expungement, and they was going to mail it to me. And
you didn't have to pay for it.
I didn't have to pay for it.
And why is that important, Hanson Melvin? Why is an expungement important for you?
Because you got to work. You got to have a career out here, and you might want to do a job change. Who knows?
And so if an employer asks you, have you ever been accused of a crime? What's your answer?
Yes.
Well, okay, but on this case, what about this case?
I could say no. I could say no because it's not on my background. Okay. So it won't show up in the system.
So even though in fact and in history you did have to go to court, even though in fact and in history you were charged, you were indicted by the grand jury. It was based on perjurious assertions, I have reported. You can say lawfully and truthfully that legally, no, in State versus Hanson Melvin, it did not happen.
Yeah.
You were not accused. And you were not accused. You were not touched at all by any action of the state.
Done. It's wiped clean.
So it's wiped. It's kind of like God's grace.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Guess you could put it that way.
Well, say you are a Christian man, Hanson, and people saw your video on the Times Free Press website regarding your story, and you gave a Christian testimony to the officer who had put you in the cage, and you said that you said to him that he would remember you for what you said and your innocence, and since then you've made comments about God's grace to you. How has God used this trial and tribulation for your benefit?
He's kept my reputation intact, and I definitely can appreciate that. I didn't want to be viewed as a criminal amongst the locals. I know a lot of people out there, and we haven't got to talk through the years. We're kind of just looking at each other through Facebook, and you hate to hear something bad that somebody's done or something bad has happened to somebody, and you don't know what's going on. You just hear the story. It's just like, a tabloid or something. And that just helped keep my reputation intact. It showed the glory of God, because he did deliver me as I said he would. He did take care of me. And I'm just very thankful. My life is 10 times better than it was last year. I'm doing so much better financially. My son just turned 1.
You have what are the ages of your children?
I got a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Becoming increasingly rich, Hanson Melvin. I'm standing here in front of our YouTube camera, holding up a great little book called "All Things for Good." It's a Puritan paperback, and first published in 1663. And Watson says, for example, that afflictions are the medicine which God uses to carry off our spiritual diseases. They cure the tympany of pride, the fever of lust, the dropsy of covetousness. Do they not then work for good? And he talks about how Christ drank the bitter cup. And he says, afflictions work for good as they conform us to Christ. God's rod is a pencil to draw Christ's image more lively upon us. And throughout time, the martyrs all knew that very thing, that Christ was going to make them suffer beheadings and burnings and decapitations and many vile cruelties. And they counted it for joy, because they knew that they weren't forgotten. They knew that they had been put in that position by God's providential decree. He had put them there for that purpose, just as you have said. He put you in that cage, in that car.
For his glory. Everything's for his glory, though, right?
Well, how many hours a week are you working, Hanson? You work at a big plant, right? And,
yeah.
You got a promotion.
I work at Coca-Cola.
And you've got a promotion?
Actually, I just changed jobs. It feels like a promotion, because I get more hours. Lie to you.
Now, what about you mentioned? Before we run out of time, wanted to mention you have some fines regarding your driver's license that you're trying to pay off. How's that going? You're trying to save up money to pay.
It's going good. That's why I did the job change, get more hours, and I want to knock that out. So I should be done with that in the end of July. But I just been knocking it out in little increments and trying to stay off the road. That's all you can do. It's hard to do. They take your license away from you. It's almost like a financial death penalty, if you ask me, because you have to go to work, and you can't depend on people to take you to work all the time. And and people have things to do, and you can't blame them. And you might not work in walking distance, or the bus might not go by your job. So it's a lot of hurdles out there when they take your license away from you. But it's just something you got to deal with and keep fighting it. A little money at a time, just a little bit at a time, each day, each week, whenever you get paid.
So your general advice to the listener, Hanson Melvin, is that he should stand up for his rights. He should say no, and he should recognize when he's done nothing wrong.
Oh yeah.
If you've done nothing wrong, don't give in. Don't start talking, because often your conversation, especially in a traffic stop, will lead the officer to have that articulable suspicion that the law requires.
But God is just. So if you ain't doing nothing wrong and you haven't did anything wrong, the righteous always prevail. Cream always rise to the top, right?
So your suggestion is, and I would agree with that, Hanson, that you just keep your mouth closed, just be respectful.
Yeah.
Be respectful. Say, I've done nothing wrong, officer. I'm sorry. If you're going to use this in court against me, I'll make no statement. And if you're going to go in, he's going to take you in regardless of what you said. And certainly we recommend that you be compliant and respectful, but maintain your grounds and don't yield to a search. If he says, I want to search your car, say no, because you have a right to say no. Hanson Melvin, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Hanson Melvin, the future mayor of Chattanooga. This is David Tulis with Nooga Radio, AM 1240, FM 92.7, where we cover local economy and the free market in Chattanooga and beyond. Our argument is love your neighbor, buy local, brought to you by Nooganomics.com, Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. David Tulis.